In 1900, France stood at the top of the world. The Third Republic was riding a wave of industrial growth and the wealth drawn from a massive colonial empire. Paris was the cultural capital of the West, enjoying a long, golden stretch of stability known as the Belle Epoque. But within 40 years, that stability shattered. German flags would fly over the Arc de Triomphe. The French state would be invaded twice, lose over 1 million men in the trenches of the First World War, and watch its capital fall to a foreign army in the Second. Within a single lifetime, the nation saw more than 90% of its global territory slip away. The globe-spanning empire that had fueled its prestige rapidly unraveled. Yet, stepping into the 21st century, France emerged as a nuclear power, a leading architect of the European Union, and a permanent member of the UN Security Council. This creates the central question of modern French history. How did a nation watch its population, its borders, and its entire overseas domain evaporate, yet emerge with a seat at the center of the modern world? The unraveling began with the very system meant to protect Europe's great powers. Decades of imperial grievances had locked European nations into rigid alliances. When an Austrian archduke was assassinated in the Balkans in 1914, those pacts acted as a tripwire, pulling France into a global conflict. The German military executed a strategy to rapidly capture Paris in 6 weeks. The advance was deadly, catching French forces partially off guard. It took a desperate defense alongside British allies at the Marne to finally halt the offensive and prevent a total surrender. Unable to take Paris, German forces dug into defensive positions. What began as a war of movement decayed into the waterlogged misery of the Western Front. This map shows the brutal mathematical reality of the conflict. For 4 years, entire offensives dragged on for months. Hundreds of thousands of young men were sent into machine gun and artillery fire to move the front line by only a few kilometers. Desperation to break that stalemate led to the use of chlorine gas. It created a horrifying end for those caught without masks, essentially drowning on dry land as liquid generated in their own lungs, leaving survivors with permanent lung damage and blindness. By 1918, foreign forces were expelled and France claimed victory, but at the cost of 1.2 million dead soldiers. The sheer scale of the slaughter broke the 19th century belief that human mass and rigid treaties were viable strategies for survival. Traumatized by the Great War, the French state attempted to protect the nation with a physical barrier. They built the Maginot Line, a massive, state-of-the-art defensive fortification designed to hold off any German invading force with heavy, immovable steel. In May 1940, that investment proved useless. The German army simply bypassed the fortifications. They tore through the dense Ardennes forest with armored vehicles, a route the French High Command had considered impassable. In just 6 weeks, the French army collapsed. Paris was occupied and the country was split. A collaborationist government known as Vichy was established in the south, led by an aging First World War hero, General Philippe Pétain. Resistance formed around 2 poles. From London, Charles de Gaulle established himself as the leader of Free France. Inside the country, a civil servant named Jean Moulin was covertly parachuted in to unify fractured underground cells. Aided by British supply drops, these networks carried out industrial sabotage, gathered intelligence, and bombed infrastructure to disrupt German movements, operating under the near certainty of torture if captured. While it eventually took a massive Allied conventional invasion to break the German lines, the legitimacy of the French state was maintained through de Gaulle's political persistence and the networks Moulin stitched together in the dark. Emerging from the Second World War battered and heavily indebted, France attempted to resurrect its old colonial model. Leadership saw the empire as a way to restore both the economy and national pride. It led to a series of catastrophic military failures. In Indochina, French forces were forced to withdraw in disarray after a humiliating defeat at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. Similar struggles gained pace in North Africa. Despite initial military wins, international pressure forced an embarrassing withdrawal from Suez in 1956, while a bloody 8-year war in Algeria drained the nation's resources and stability. By the 1960s, it was clear that holding foreign land by force had become a geopolitical liability. To survive as a modern power, France had to accept the end of its 19th century territorial model. To secure its sovereignty without relying on allies, France developed an independent nuclear deterrent, successfully testing its first atomic bomb in the Sahara in 1960. This collection of euro banknotes represents a second pillar of modern French influence. Rather than fighting its neighbors, France took a lead role in European integration, helping build the world's largest integrated economic bloc. Today, the nation maintains its reach through a combination of immense cultural soft power and targeted military deployments abroad, such as Operation Barkhane in the Sahel, rather than through full territorial occupation. France surrendered its 19th century empire, but secured a permanent UN veto, an independent nuclear arsenal, and a central role in Europe. Ultimately, it is a nation that survived the brutal 20th century by ruthlessly